Good evening, everyone. I'm Shannon Rutherford, the town planner for Farmington. This is the Inland Wetlands meeting for April 17th. I'm going to start with a roll call of members. Dave Fox.
Here.
Rich Berlandi.
Here.
Neil Kelsey. Neil Kelsey. Neil Kelsey going once. All right, he's half in at the moment. Andre Simons. All right, we will mark Andre absent for now. Mark Simpson.
I'm here.
And alternate commissioner George Santos.
Here.
Ned Stachin.
Here.
And I'll note for the record that Robert Eisner is absent. So, Mr. Chair, you would have the ability to appoint Mr. Santos. And then
Okay.
I'll check real quick. Neil Kelsey, can you hear us?
Yeah, it just came in. I couldn't hear anything until you said that.
Okay. All right.
Very good.
Very good. So you're all ready to roll.
Okay. So with Neil, I don't need to appoint George at the moment.
No, you still can to fill Robert Eisner's position.
Oh, okay, right. All right. So for the record, George Santos will be seated for Robert Eisner tonight. And I'll call, yeah. So the first item on the agenda is the 4 Wanamassa Lane, Russell Speeder's Car Wash. The town had some, town staff had some comments dated 4/12. Is the applicant available to speak to the comments?
Yes, this is Phil Henry with Civil Design Group, the engineer on the project. We also have TC now is from who's our client from Russell Speeders.
Hey, everyone.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to kind of go through the comments. We received these comments late last week. We went through all the comments. We've highlighted a few, actually just a couple that we'd want to have some discussion items. I don't know if Shannon will have any feedback for us, but it looks like these comments were, I would say primarily for the Inland Wetlands Commission, but also for planning and zoning. So it was expressed to me, unless I misunderstood, that we would review these comments, discuss them at this hearing, and then either commit to them or talk about them, and then incorporate them into the plan set as needed. And I'm not sure, maybe Shannon could provide some feedback if these are going to be conditions of approval, and then we would make these changes prior to planning and zoning, or if we need to see all changes included on the plan set before approval.
Certainly it's the commission's choice, but typically, as noted on the comments, which I have here, there's no objection to having all or a portion of these as a condition of approval.
Okay.
So that's typically the intent. So that's typically how the commission chooses to move forward, but that is certainly their choice.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I guess what I'd like to do is, we went through all the comments. Most of them, I think everyone would agree are the same, relative to each prospective project, but I understand we'll do Scott Swamp next, but as it relates to 4 Wanamassa Lane, the only two comments that we want to discuss is comment 24 and 25. All other comments, including the ones that are really for planning, we don't have any, I guess, objection to it, although we would like to reserve the right to perhaps set up a meeting with Shannon and Bruce perhaps next week as it relates to planning and zoning comments. But as it relates to
Certainly.
so as it relates to IWC comments, Number 24 and 25 are ones that we want to proactively bring up, and then we'll obviously react to and discuss any comments that the commission would like. But essentially 24 says infiltration systems for parking areas do not allow for any pretreatment of sodium chloride used for snow and ice maintenance, which would impact groundwater. Review alternative products. And then 25 talks about provide catch basin filters for all combination catch basins, dry wells to accommodate removal of both sediment and hydrocarbons. So on this particular project, there are 2 catch basins up towards the front of Wanamaso Lane that appear to be closed catch basins based on historical plans. And then there's 1 catch basin in the back that dumps into a leaching basin or a leaching dry well, if you will. Although the survey did not pick it up. I'm wondering if the catch basin ended up being a leaching basin as they installed it. But regardless, I guess when Bruce had called me, I'll take 25 first. He indicated that there is a device out there that he recommended us looking up, and it was called Flex Storm Pure Filters. It looks like it's some sort of membrane that you lift the rim of a leaching catch basin and you put this membrane in. It's almost sort of like I guess a permanent silt sack, if you will. So we are not opposed to doing that in all catch basins, actually, non-leaching. We just didn't quite understand number 24, what the intent was for focusing on, I guess, salt removal. Based on historical plans for this project, it looks like catch basins were installed with 3-foot sumps per the detail. And then we're proposing to propose eliminator hoods, which are prefab green looking hoods that are attached or fastened onto the outlet of catch basins. So I was wondering if combination of hoods, sumps, and this pure filter, if that would satisfy 24 and 25.
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
may I comment?
Yes, please.
So certainly felt with respect to 25 and the flex storm, absolutely, then that's fine. So that filter will work certainly with the sumps and then the hoods. The purpose of the comment regarding the typical sodium chloride use is because this property it's either at the edge or in the aquifer. I think it's at the edge of the aquifer.
Okay, yes.
I don't think it's in. I'd have to go back and turn on. I've got the site brought up. Actually, just let me do it while we're
Yeah,
chatting.
it's in the floodplain, but very close to the river.
Right. Well, no, I'm talking aquifer, so it's a different.
Okay.
Let me see. Hang on. I got Zoom windows up. I got map layers going. Hang on a second. I can't remember if this had to register or not. Let's see if my aquifer layer is going to come on. Yeah, it is. So it's in the aquifer protection zone for our sand and stone aquifer. So there would be a registration that we have on file for the property. And the purpose is, so there's alternative materials to just using sodium chloride, right, for salt or for to help with snow and ice removal. So there's magnesium chloride, there's calcium chloride, there's other. So the thought would be to use something other than the sodium chloride, because what they're finding is very high sodium contents are getting into the groundwater system, and there is not a good filtration mechanism for removing the sodium from the water and getting that separated from the water. So it's just using something other than committing to using something other than sodium chloride.
I see. Okay. Yeah,
and
that
then
makes
10 years from now, there'll be a surplus of something else, and then we'll switch it up again. So I understand that it's, we didn't want the sand because the sand's running off and it's causing sedimentation. So we switched, again, it's an evolution of technology and information, but
I
the intent would be to not use sodium chloride right now, if possible.
Okay, okay, yeah, so I misunderstood that comment. So it's basically, let's focus on sourcing a different product so we don't have to mitigate for it downstream. Okay,
Correct.
okay, all right. So I guess I'll TC, my client is on. I think that's something that we could agree to, TC. It looks like we just have to use something more than a salt concentration.
Yeah, yeah, and that looks like it would be for both sites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, that's really the only two comments we wanted to proactively clarify. There are comments that are more related to planning and zoning that we'll defer to an offline technical conversation with Bruce. But if there's no other comments from the board, then, or I'm sorry, the IWC, the commission, I think we could agree to the IWC applicable comments.
Okay. All right, let me ask the board if they have any questions or they're okay with what's been proposed so far. Just to speak to, yeah, we do have sometimes, depending on how the staff is working with the engineering firm to, as long as it's agreed to, that these things will be into, put into the plans, that the staff is fully capable of checking them, probably better than we are, that the items are addressed. So, but we'll just hear from the commission. Start with Dave Fox.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I did have a couple of questions. After discussion of it's in the Aquifer Protection Area, does that trigger a requirement that they have to notify the water company of this project?
It does. We'll do that with planning and zoning. Typically because there's no there is an increase in impervious coverage and it's a redevelopment of an existing property, really a like for like.
Right.
Then there's less review, but it will happen with our TPZ.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that. And one of the town's comments was provide information that the first 1.3 inches of rainwater can be contained on the site. Is that going to be explored?
So so comment 38, which is what I think you're referencing, and actually comment 39. I don't want to speak for Bruce, certainly, but what I'm about to say is my understanding of what he had indicated to me was that these were comments that he wanted to put in here in case there were items that the commission and the planning and zoning requested above and beyond what is shown on the plans. But my understanding is because we're not increasing impervious and we're not proposing any BMPs that require sizing, that these are sort of moot comments, at this very time. So I hope I kind of portrayed that accurately. So I guess I'll defer to Shannon if that's not the case.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I'm looking at the agenda review. In this area highlighted, so there are 3 catch basins in front of the building alongside Wanamassa Lane, which drain directly into the existing 36-inch RCP that collects water from Highlands, Wanamassa, and discharges directly to the Farmington River. An overview of the GIS system depicting this layout's included in the packet, which we shared and was online. I've got it here as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've requested, since this is considered a redevelopment project under the MS4, to provide water quality treatment in accordance with the MS4 permit and the deep stormwater quality manual. We've reviewed this with the project engineer and discussed some options to address this issue, and we've asked them to review with the commission. Staff's also requested a label or stenciling of any existing or proposed catch basin tops indicating these drain to the infiltration system. I thought Bruce had mentioned to me, because there's two, I
Oh,
thought I
yeah.
had the grading. It's got
Yes.
utility plan on, but I'm not seeing the catch basins. I'm not as familiar with
Oh,
these
no.
plans as Bruce, but there's something,
Yeah,
there's
they're right
two
there.
catch basins here. And then
Yeah, they're
there's
right
another
there.
catch basin here somewhere, and they both dumped out and connect directly into, I believe, blind connections into the 36-inch RCP that runs down Wanamassa.
Okay,
I
yes.
thought his suggestion was to link 1 to 2 to get rid of the blind connections, link 1 to 2, and then change this to an inlet storm scepter. So the water that's draining into this catch basin will get cleaned, and then this water coming across would get cleaned, and then do a new clean connection that's not a blind connection into the 36-inch. So bring these across, do an inlet storm scepter and come across, I thought was one option he had discussed.
Yeah, yes, I stand corrected. I think that was more, we were talking in the context of Scott Swamp, but yes, on this one, yeah, so Shannon, if you see on the left side, GI Great Inlet 3, just move, yeah, great,
Yep.
and then to Great Inlet 4, if you just move your, yeah, so we're gonna go Great Inlet 3 to 4,
Yeah,
and then we're gonna continue a pipe to the right where your hand is about right in the grass area.
okay,
And then he said that's where we're going to put, say, a proprietary separator. And then along the gutter line, right to the left, where the property line meets the gutter on the left side,
the property.
right there on
Yeah.
our property,
Yeah.
we were going to put another catch basin and then connect left into the proposed proprietary separator and then go plan south
Sure.
and then connect into GI Great Inlet 5. Which is right there, just that offline Great Inlet on the left side of the property. On the left, I'm sorry, the left side of the curb on the inlet, on the
Over
entrance.
the N,
And
over
lane.
the N and lane.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, here it is. Got it. Here. Okay.
Yeah, he said because that's a 36-inch pipe, we don't really want to mess with that. He said tie into that Great Inlet 5.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, so I stand corrected. So that storm scepter or hydro works, whatever we'll spec out and show backup for, that will treat the 1.3 inches of impervious runoff contributing watershed.
Gotcha. So that would treat the water quality volume. So that would
Yes.
satisfy that with that particular item for this site then. Okay.
Yes. So, yeah,
Okay.
so sorry about that. I stand corrected on that.
Nope, that's fine. I know it's tough when you're trying to muscle two through
Yeah.
at the same time. So,
That sounds
Okay.
good, because I had recommended at the last meeting.
That's right.
To
Yep.
the swirl technology. I'm glad to see you incorporated that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Neil Kelsey,
I don't have anything at this time, thanks.
all right. Mark Simpson,
No questions.
Rich Berlandy,
No questions. Thank you.
and George Santos.
Seems like they're doing everything that we asked them to do before, so I have no questions.
Yeah, okay. And just for the record, we still have Andre Simons absent. He didn't come in late.
Right.
Okay,
yeah, correct.
all right. Yeah, I didn't, as I read through the comments and as there were and all the items on the review, it looked pretty lengthy. So I'm confident that if we can get those addressed and put in the record that they'll be addressed, that I would be willing to support this application with the comments. So I didn't have any additional questions. So seeing that the commission was satisfied, I'll entertain a motion to approve the item at 4 Wanamassa Lane, with the inclusion that all the staff comments, as we've discussed, will be addressed and to the town staff satisfaction.
Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt you. Can I just say one more thing, actually, as it
Sure.
relates to, sorry to interrupt you, but
No
going
problem.
back to the storm scepter or proprietary separator that we just discussed.
Yeah.
Would the commission be amenable to, and perhaps I'll defer to Shannon from her engineering side, is aside from a hydrodynamic separator, would the commission be amenable to providing an alternate BMP, such as like an offline oil grit separator? We'd like to consider the cost of said device. So if there's an equivalent device that is perhaps cheaper or more mainstream or available, we'd like to explore that. So I don't know if that's a consideration that the commission would allow us to explore.
Well, we would allow you to explore it, but I think you would have to satisfy the town staff.
Sure.
As long as you convince them that they were agreeable to it, then it wouldn't have to be that exact separator.
Okay, perfect.
So our staff are the experts and we'll leave it to them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, so I'm asking for a motion to approve with the stipulations that the applicant will meet the town staff's requirements. Do I have a motion, please?
So move, Mark.
Thank you. And a
Second, Rich.
Second by
Rich.
Rich. Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve application for 4 Wanamassa Lane as with the stipulations included. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, all right.
So number 2, 3062. Oh, anybody, anybody extension? No, okay. Thank you. Number 2. The comments were similar on number 2.
Yes.
If I missed something, I mean,
Yeah, I think the main difference, Mr. Chair, and Phil, you can certainly jump in. I believe this system under its existing condition primarily is an infiltration by as it's designed within basically a high level overflow or a flat pipe from the end basin out into Route 6. But I believe all of these, if I recall, are dry wells, or most of them are dry wells on the property. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Most of the site discharges eventually into Great Inlet 4 and 5, which are just above your hand right now. So at 2 o'clock and 11 o'clock from your hand.
Okay.
So, but yes,
2 and 11.
or I guess maybe, sorry, 1 o'clock and 11.
Is that, I don't know.
So that, yeah, so that's, yeah,
So
so
there's a great inlet. So there's a GI3, GI5,
and then GI4 is just left of GI5, plan left.
plan
GI5.
left. Oh, there it is. Okay. It's in
Yeah,
the,
so-
well, it's gonna,
Yeah, we're gonna change it to a cover.
you're gonna notch out the,
No,
is
we're
it
just gonna
showing in
change
the
it.
landscape? It's
We're just
showing,
gonna-
is this all flush through here?
Yeah, we're just gonna, well, you can see the note, it says remove grade and replace with cover.
Yep.
So
Okay.
it's still gonna, it's still connecting, because we're pitching everything back to GI3.
Gotcha. All right.
So the watershed's, it's still gonna get in there. This plan is interesting because as Shannon had indicated, from GI4 plan south to the right of way, there's a reverse pitched pipe out to the right of way in GI, it's called GI Great Inlet 1. It looks like, but based on historical plans from 2000, which when this was redeveloped, there was an existing pipe that had positive pitch from the prior building out, and it looks like during construction, they kind of capped the pipe and just reattached it to what was then proposed Great Inlet 4. And the only thing I can determine is that they used it as an overflow. It's very, it's impossible that thing ever gets used because the invert into Great Inlet 1 is higher than the rims of the on-site catch basins. So I'm not sure why they did it, but it's there, but I don't think it ever gets used. So, and then in keeping with, just for the record, comments 25 and 26 were the same comments of 24 and 25 on Wanamaso, and we clarified that we're happy to do the flex storm pure filters in all the leaching basins, and then we will commit to using something else than sodium chloride for snow.
Okay. And there's something about labeling or stenciling existing catch basins to indicate they drain the filtration for emergency responders.
Yeah, Bruce, this is a comment on both. Bruce had indicated that some newer catch basin rims have either like a fish symbol on them or saying like, you know, drains to harbor or river or freshwater to indicate that, okay, this is a leaching catch basin that should there be an emergency or a spill of some sort, even though there's no hazardous material on site, this obviously isn't a gas station, that he said first responders would know to address that area first. And also to, you know, to discourage somebody from dumping anything down that
Right.
catch. So yeah, we're happy either to stencil that in, or if it's going to be faster and more expeditious to get new grates, you know, we'll, in one way or the fashion, those leaching catch basins will be labeled as such.
Very good. All right. I'll ask for any comments from the commission. Dave Fox.
Yeah, I was wondering, I had wondered last time about the one catch basin that outlets to the back and flows towards the wetlands. I was wondering if you investigated the status of that outfall, like whether there's any riprap or any erosion leading into the wetland.
I think there was a representative from Russell Speeders that was on site. I'll defer to TC, but I don't think there was significant amount of riprap. So what we said last time is we would commit to refreshing that apron.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
Okay, Rich Berlandy.
I had the same question on the outlet, but I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay. Neil Kelsey,
I'm all set, thanks.
Mark Simpson.
No questions, thanks.
All right, George Santos.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, and I actually got my question answered, so I don't think unless the staff satisfied
Yes, sir.
with the, okay. All right, so given that we'll do along the same lines as the first one, I'll entertain a motion to approve, with the stipulation that, the applicant meet the, comments that, provided by the town staff and work with the town staff for any changes that are, required and will meet their approval. Do I have, a motion, please?
This is Rich. I'll make that motion, and I'd like to add to that they'll address the outlet of that storm drain that drains to the stream in the back from Great Inlet 7, I guess it is.
Okay, was that not in the comments? I don't.
I
I'm not
don't
sure.
know.
We could add, well, we could add it in anyway, and if it is, it is.
Yeah.
We'll double our coverage. Okay, with refreshing of the riprap improvement at that outlet. And a second, please.
Mark here. I'll do a second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to approve the application with stipulations discussed. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right. Thanks very much. Thank you, Phil. We will,
Right.
we'll follow up over the next few days. Bruce will be back next week. We can get a meeting set up next week if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, why don't I'll wait till next Monday or so, or Tuesday, and I'll send Bruce an email.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good job. All right, the next item on the agenda is Talcott Glen Tax District.
And I believe Martin, I'm not sure if Martin Brody or Will Walter is taking the lead with this, but I know I saw Martin on the line.
Yeah, it's Martin Brogy here. I don't know if you have my camera off or,
No, no, I don't have. You should have control over that. I don't have control over your camera because you're in as a panelist.
mm-hmm. Yeah, for some reason, my cameras, I did select to activate the, there I am.
There you go.
There you are.
Wow, look at that.
There you go.
So thank you. Yes, I'm here on behalf of the Talcott Glen Tax District. My name is Martin Brogy. I'm the principal of Martin Brogy Incorporated out of Madison, Connecticut. I'm a certified soil scientist and been practicing in Connecticut for about the last 34 years. I was hired by Talcott Glen directly to permit this project and conduct the resource evaluation. They had already brought on board Pristine Waters. You'll hear from Mark Aimler. Is Mark Aimler on the line here? He did say, I forwarded Mark my link.
I'm here.
Okay, great. So Mark Aimler is here from Pristine Waters. He is the dredging consultant and contractor with quite a lot of experience. I've learned quite a bit from him already. And so we did work with Benesh and Company. They provided the survey services for the site. They picked up all the wetland flags and the topo, and they developed the plan set. They didn't really do any engineering for this project at this point, but they did provide some advice that I'll talk with you about. We've got about a 4,800 square foot shallow pond that's incorporated into the Talcott Glen Condo Association. It's surrounded on about 50% by the developed condo association area, including 2 buildings and a paved area with some garages where there's been a serious flooding problem. There's a leak off from that paved area that drains to the pond, and the pond has an outlet problem and a sediment problem, and it has a, it floods up into the garages, which is a serious problem here. So the pond is situated along the southeastern property boundary, and you'll note that actually the southeastern edge of that pond actually extends off-site to the S&H Associates property. We did obtain permission from that abutter to proceed with this project. And we did provide a letter from them that is in the record. You should have that. You should also have my January 8th delineation report. And I provided some supplemental photographic documentation of the pond outlet area a couple days ago, and I'm glad that made it into the package. And then you have your plan set dated December 20th, 2023, stamped by the engineer and surveyor. So that completes the package basically. So the pond, like I say, it's a man-made pond, and it receives discharges from the southwest from a watercourse that runs under Talcott Notch Road. That watercourse also receives some additional drainage northeast of Talcott Notch Road from the condo development. There's also a seepy area. You'll note the driveway to the condos just to the north there. There are some seeps on a fill slope there and some stormwater discharges. They come down slope toward the southeast, join that water course, which proceeds northeast to the pond. That's the main inflow to the pond. The pond also receives overland discharges during stormwater events from that paved leak off, as well as a 15-inch RCP that comes into the pond, again, from the storm drainage system from Talcott Ridge off of the northwest corner of the pond. The pond outlets to the northeast via a man-made channel that discharges to a 30-inch reinforced concrete pipe and proceeds off-site and dumps into a very large drainage system to the north and northeast associated with the adjacent development. And so the wetland delineation was conducted in early January. I did a vegetation inventory. The primary wetland delineation out there was the edge of water associated with the pond. To the southwest of the pond, there are some poorly drained soils. The wetland line kind of wraps around some fill that was apparently removed when the pond was created, and it's piled up next to the southeast of the stream inlet, and it wraps around through a forested area to the southwest. As far as wildlife habitat, this is a shallow eutrophic pond. There's not a lot going on in there. When I went out to the site in early April, I did observe about 50 to 100 tadpoles in there, probably green frog tadpoles, quite likely. And they'll be hatching out well before becoming frogs and vacating well before we implement this project. Mark also pointed out to me, which also I observed on site, these tadpoles will they sense your presence and they go the other direction. So we're not expecting anyone to be any critters to be coming near the operation. It's just a one man entering the pond with a suction tube, and Mark has indicated that they don't like to come near it. So if there is anything remaining in the pond, certainly won't be impacted. And this would be a significant benefit to habitat by increasing the size of the water column, oxygenation, and so forth. It's just really mucky and quite smelly, actually. It's a nuisance for the area. Surrounding the pond is red maples, ash, birch, hop hornbeam, spice bush dominates the shrub layer, and then we have sensitive fern, jewelweed, and a variety of other herbaceous wetland plants in and around the pond perimeter. There's some ornamentals that have been planted there as part of the condo association. And none of the vegetation is going to be disturbed by this. There's just going to be an inlet tube removing the sediment, and then an outfall hose reintroducing water back into the pond as the project moves forward. So we don't need any erosion control around the pond. There's no construction, in and adjacent to the pond. We have our collection area, 100 feet or so away. There's no equipment that is going to be in or near the pond other than the suction hose and the outlet hose, as Mark will explain. That's basically all I have from a wetland delineation and resource, evaluation, standpoint. I think this will be an improvement to the existing conditions, certainly. I know that Bruce Sear had some comments. He was concerned about the volume that we provided for the 30 by 80 area to accommodate the sediment. And if you do a direct calculation, yeah, it seems too small, but as Mark can explain, the sediment is very fluffy and it's mostly water. And he has gotten, I think he's told me today, 700 or 800 cubic yards of material into the same size container. So it's not a volume issue. And I think the other thing that Bruce mentioned was the permission from the abutter. That letter is on the record as well. So I don't know if you want to hear from Mark in terms of particulars of how this operation will work. I see that the operational plan is up on the screen, and maybe we can give Mark a chance to describe to everybody how this is going to work.
Yeah, I would like to hear the process and, you know, what's going to happen with the sediment after it's taken, after the vacuuming out of the pond base is done.
Okay.
Sure. So hi, my name is Mark. I'm one of the partners in Pristine Waters. We've been dredging ponds in a variety of different ways for about 11 years. We started out with this very process, which is diver-assisted suction dredging. And we've moved on to larger scale mechanical dredging and hydraulic dredging over the course of that time. Again, this will be diver-assisted suction dredging. So essentially what this is, if for people who are not familiar with it, is we have a land-based pump. The land-based pump will be located just above the trailer mounted suction pump. So Martin, down, if you're in control of the screen.
No, it's Shannon's in charge, so.
All right, hi,
Okay.
Shannon.
Hi.
So it's actually down and to the left.
Down and to the left.
Right, so
Over
you see
here,
trailer
trailer
mount-
mounted.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that'll be parked in the driveway area. Essentially, there's a 4-inch high pressure hose connected to the front of that goes to a priming barge. The priming barge sits in the water. It's about 11 by 6 and has a small 23 horsepower gas engine with a 3-inch pump that draws water from the pond and goes through a Venturi tube. The Venturi tube creates suction on the front end to prime the trailer mounted suction pump. That trailer mounted suction pump then takes over and provides all of the real suction to pull this material out of the pond in slurry. That slurry is transported through the hose or pipe running. Here it says 6-inch sediment suction hose. That's essentially going into a 30-foot wide by 80-foot long geotextile tube. Then what essentially happens is you have the diver who's in the water, and I say diving, but if you've seen this pond, you probably realize that there's not a whole lot of diving going on. There's people walking around on the bottom and basically hand vacuuming the organic material and sand that's in the pond into this pump system. It goes through the pump into the discharge line to the geotextile tube, which is microporous. It essentially acts like a giant filter. After you're done pumping into the tube, the water will start. Actually, it will be happening while we're pumping into it, but most of it occurs after we complete pumping each pump run, where the solids settle to the bottom and the water is able to escape through these perforations. It's collected in an above ground berm built with hay bales and lined with plastic. And then that water is pumped back through the return line to the pond for a couple reasons. Number one, we would completely dewater this pond in a matter of a day, maybe even less if we didn't have return water coming. And number two, if you dried out this pond, whatever habitat you do have in there, whatever critters, animals are in there would not have a nice fate. So we return the water back. I mean, that's essentially the process. So it's rinse and repeat. The 30 by 80 geotextile tube will go up to a maximum height of 7.5 feet high when it's filled with water and sediment. Then, once pumping is completed for the duration of the project, when we've gotten all the material out of the pond, the tube is left in place to dry for a period of time. Depending on what time of year that is, if you have a lot of sunlight hours and ambient humidity is relatively low or average for say late summer, early fall, it takes about a month, maybe 6 weeks for the material to dry out to the point where you can open up this tube. But in that process, as it's drying out, and even in the process of pumping it into the tube, that pump is moving probably about anywhere from 500 to 700 gallons of water a minute. And in that pipeline, that suspended sediment in the slurry is essentially being atomized. It's bouncing around. That water is moving at 8 to 12 feet per second. So it's the sediment and the solids are pretty much being pulverized. They form into smaller particles, and when they settle down in these tubes with the pressure of the water on top of it, they consolidate. They consolidate and they compress and they reduce in size as the water is able to escape. We estimate that by the end of this process, if there's 450 cubic yards of in situ sediment, predominantly organic, you're probably looking at somewhere between 20 and 40% of that material as dry cake at the end. Somewhere in that range. So that would put you at about 90 to 180 cubic yards of material. At that point, that material either, once the bag is dry and everything is dried out, essentially there's two choices. Either the material can be carted off site and disposed of in a landfill of sorts, or even a landscaping yard, which can repurpose it by mixing it with sand to create topsoil, or it can be used directly on site and regraded in to the existing landscape. It's a lot of material, but it's not as much as it sounds like when you look at the in situ versus the dry consolidated material. So, I mean, that's generally the process. To the question that Mr. Sear asked in his email to Martin, as somebody who's logged probably as many hours as a couple handful of people on this planet underwater, sucking organic material, sand, all kinds of stuff out of the bottom of ponds and lakes. What I can tell you is that, generally speaking, the animals that are around us sense the larger animal and the vibration of the pumps that are running, and they flee. I mean, occasionally we come across a snapping turtle. If we're working at the wrong time of year or during the hibernation periods. And in those instances, maybe the snapping turtle wouldn't flee quite as quickly, but the reality is even those flee 99% of the time. If you surprise one and they're hibernating, you have to kind of relocate it or back off and try to approach that area at a later date. But I think our mortality is extraordinarily low. So, and we actually walked through this pond in a dry suit during late spring, maybe 3 years ago. And my recollection was that there wasn't a whole lot of stuff going on in there. There were a lot of mosquitoes. Beyond that, yeah, some tadpoles here and there. Really didn't see any fish to speak of. But whatever is there, we either hand relocate them, because remember, we're in there doing this by hand. We either move them out of the way or they flee. That's essentially what happens with the wildlife. That's a basic articulation of the process. If anybody has any specific questions that I can answer, I'm happy to do so.
So as you're sucking up the sediment in the basement, you can't put like a screen or anything over that, or would that deter this?
You really
suction?
can't. I mean, we do have like, so we use a nozzle which has a handle, and then we put our hand inside of the nozzle to limit the size of objects that come through. But if you close it off too much with a screen, what'll end up happening is the organic material all clogs on that screen and won't allow it to pass water. A fair amount of the material in there is really just decomposing leaves altogether. But again, the mortality to the best of my knowledge, again, I've probably done about a couple thousand hours under the water doing this specific work in environments like this. I do not believe the mortality is substantial or significant in any way, shape, or form. Honestly. So for whatever it's worth. And to that point also, the alternative methods to cleaning out a pond like this typically involve draining the pond and bringing in an excavator. And in both of those instances, mortality is complete, pretty much, unless you remove the animals, which with tadpoles and frogs is going to be tricky at best. But again, I think our mortality is extremely low. So.
And so, this pond is fed from, parking lot drainage and runoff. When you do filter the water before you return it, does that, if it's runoff, it can have oil or other other materials in there. Does that get caught in the filters?
So the bag acts like a filter bag. It will contain some of that, although it's limited in terms of how fine a material it can catch. So super fine particles can make their way back to the pond. I capture everything that could possibly be in there. But I don't believe anything that I saw led me to believe that there was any substantial contamination in the sediments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shannon, did you have any questions?
I don't have anything else. I
Okay.
think they touched on most of the things that Bruce had commented on.
Okay, let's ask the commission, Neil Kelsey, do you have anything? Questions?
Not right now. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll ask Shannon. Shannon, have we done anything like this? I can't say if I remember this, handheld sump pump cleaning.
In my tenure, no. The only thing I have for comparison is Winding Trails has done sand reclamation at the beach, and they've done a boom drag and done that, and they've gone out whatever, or however long that boom would, the excavator arm would reach, and do bring the boom in to bring the sand material back in, because the inclination of the beach is so steep that the sand runs off into the water.
Right.
They've got to scrape it back. And then the only other one was Walton Pond that Winding Trails embarked on, but that was a full habitat relocate, animal relocation project, and then a drawdown so that the entire pond could be redone. So distinctly different order of magnitude, but
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Shannon, because I remember the Winding Trails project, and yeah, it was a complete habitat relocation and then relocation back.
and restoration, but hugely, vastly different order of magnitude project, and also hugely different with respect to the wildlife, right? I mean, this is I think when you take a look at some of the photos, I've got to go back. Let's see here if I can find the original wetland delineation report had some photos at the bottom. It is, when Mr. Brogry says it is mucky and smelly, and it is more swamp at the moment than pond.
Yeah.
It is, Bruce and I had been there in 2021 and walked the entire property extensively with the homeowners association or condo association representatives. And it is not pleasant. It is, I think they mentioned, you know, it's lacking oxygen. It's an oxygen depleted area, so there's not much active life there. So the tadpoles, sure, but you're not going to have a lot of other things in there because of the algae bloom, and
Hmm.
it's pretty thick.
Mhm.
They're
Okay.
gonna sink in. When they go to stand in it, my guess is they sink into their knee. There's no way an average individual is gonna stand there and not, you're gonna sink in at least up to your knees. They're gonna have to vacuum themselves out of there.
Okay. Mark Simpson?
Yes, I have a question. You mentioned about how this is all going to happen. You mentioned you're going to have a barge on the pond itself, and you're going to use a gas-powered pump
Yes,
to prime the suction of the suction to get the materials out.
yes.
What precautions or what methods you go about to make sure? I assume this gas-powered pump needs to be refilled
Mhm.
at certain times because you're using it continuously.
Mhm.
So I assume somebody's got to go out to the barge with some type of fuel container and to refill the pump.
We refill the pump. So it's a detachable gas tank, like you would have on like a little dinghy to go out to a boat in a mooring. So it's a coupled line that connects to a spill-proof connector, right? We bring the little fuel tank back to land and we fuel on land. So the gasoline is in a tank on the barge, but we don't refill it on the barge. It's very simple to detach it and bring it to land.
All right. What time of year you're proposing to do this?
This type of work, so this type of work we've done throughout Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, anywhere from really late March to mid-January. The only time we can't actually do it from a physical limitation perspective is if these ponds ice over with more than an inch of ice.
Yep.
Every town, believe it or not, every town has a different opinion on when it's impactful on a habitat level, and when it's impactful in terms of spawning, and breeding, hatching, all these things. So I don't have like a hard and true answer because I've been given opinions by various different inland wetlands association or boards, as well as wetland scientists and biologists, that it's kind of all over the place. Some of that probably has to do with specific species that live in these places. Generally speaking, the best times of year, in my opinion, to do them are from like May through, you know, really May through September. Seems to be a pretty good time to do these kinds of projects, especially if you don't have a lot of sensitive species. I would never recommend doing this in a trout pond in the middle of summer because you're already fighting low oxygen a lot of the time. And you know, any kind of disturbance could theoretically make that a little bit worse. But that's the best answer I have for you.
Okay, in this case, if I may, Mark, we talked about a schedule for this particular project earlier based on, your workload right now. I think you said July,
Yeah,
which
July,
in,
August.
yeah, which in my mind, is a good time. Certainly with less risk for severe rain and flooding and that sort of thing. And it's low water. So I think, any frogs will have been out of the pond by then. So I think that that's an optimal time in this particular case.
Well, one last question. You said it doesn't sound like this is a prime breeding environment, but has there been a serious check of this um, pond that, I mean, is it just an observation you see tadpoles, or have you physically gone in there to see if there's any eggs of other types of species that reside in there other than these
Yeah.
tadpoles?
I went by in mid-March. I had another project nearby, and I stopped by specifically looking for egg masses, spotted salamanders, and wood frogs, and I didn't observe any. And then the tadpoles that I observed were very small. In my mind, they appeared to be maybe green frog tadpoles. Nothing that looked like obligate vernal pool species
Okay.
out there.
All right, but that's what I wanted to know. I mean, I was getting I was hearing about seeing an observation of these tadpoles, but I just wanted to hear from you that there was some more of a physical effort to verify that there was no other species. Mr.
Yeah,
Chair, I'm done. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, yeah, one other comment is that, that it's often, the vernal pools will be most functional with suitable surrounding habitat. And given the developed nature of the surrounding area and the relatively disturbed, forest land that's there, plus the wetlands, there's virtually no suitable upland habitat for the obligate vernal pool species to reside in there. So that further informs the fact that not much is going on in there in terms of obligate species.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers. And Mr. Chair, that's my last question.
Okay. Dave Fox?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. What's the size of the nozzle of your vacuum cleaner? What's the diameter? Just curious.
Probably about 3 to 4 inches. I mean, I don't have an exact number for you, but again,
Just
keep in
order of
mind,
magnitude. That's good.
yeah, and then there's a ring around it which narrows it down a little bit more. And then also keep in mind that again, all of us, when we do this, we put our hands in the nozzle. I mean, literally, if you can see this, holding the nozzle with our fingers inside of it, reducing the aperture even more. And that's primarily to prevent solids that are kind of right on the line. Think like big sticks that'll jam up the pump, or large rocks from getting in. And we do that very much on purpose, even though it's rather unpleasant at the speed they come in at. But it's less unpleasant than breaking down a system and finding a clog. So all in, probably 2.5 inches tops.
Okay, thank you. Hope you wear gloves.
We certainly do.
And my other thing was, you mentioned a barge, but looking at
Yeah.
the picture, it's hard to picture a barge
Yeah.
on a pile of muck.
Yeah. So, this is, when I say a barge, the best way to articulate what it is think of a flat bottom pontoon. So 2 square pontoon floats with a few pieces of plywood bolted on, right? It's really just a floating platform that I mean, it drafts like 2 inches in the water. So it doesn't even really have to support human weight. It just has to support that priming pump.
Right.
So,
Okay, thank you. Very interesting process you've got there.
yeah,
That's all I
welcome
have.
you all to come out and check it out, because it is it's definitely different.
That's all I have.
Okay. Rich Berlandy?
Question, do you use any flocculants, or something to make the sediment coagulate?
So we did not spec this for flocculant use. We do in certain projects. Those technically or typically are larger scale hydraulic dredging projects that we use that for. In a case like this, we don't really necessarily see an overwhelming benefit. We don't think that we're going to have an abnormal amount of superfines. We didn't find any evidence of clay, which could cause a problem, or any substantial clay. We believe that this pond will, while you are getting back slightly turbid water, most of the water in the pond is pretty low quality at the moment anyway. And whatever superfine return you'll have is almost negligible. I mean, it's nominal. So we did not spec flocculant use for this.
And the
Okay, so
project does include there's two, sediment curtains on the outfall
Yes.
of the pond as well.
So basically what you're taking out, you're putting back in, well, minus some fine materials.
Extremely super fine,
Yeah.
very, very small.
Okay, that's the only questions I had. Thank you.
George Santos?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I had a couple more questions. So if you're doing this and you get a heavy thunderstorm comes in, like you have the outlet areas near the bridge. Are you have something that, because you're stirring up, a lot of sediment. Are you something to catch it in case you get a heavy flow that you didn't anticipate, or?
So yeah, as Martin pointed out, we're gonna have two turbidity curtains stretched across there to kind of slow the flow down and to give it more time to settle out. The other thing to keep in mind is that as we're removing all of this material from the bottom, we're actually displacing the water level quite a bit. The pond take longer to refill and then overflow out into the spill again than it normally would, because we're actually removing all the solid fill that's occupying volume right now. Beyond that, if we know that there's a prediction for heavy thunderstorms, we do not work during that period.
Okay.
So just will there be slight turbidity? Perhaps. But nothing more than what you would expect during a major thunderstorm, with whatever's washing into the pond already. But we don't work through that. If we even see a hint or hear a hint of thunder, we immediately stop work, because we're at a tremendous risk for electrocution in the pond. It's pretty much stop work, and most days, if we have a substantial thunderstorm, we're not coming back for a day. It's you don't wait those out, because by the time you go through the weather reports and you're waiting for it to stop, you're better off just calling it a day. So.
Okay, now the barge that you put the pump on, is the pump physically attached to that,
Yeah.
so it can't fall off the barge?
That's correct.
Okay. And then how much do you expect to whatever you would call the like the bottom elevation of the pond to change?
So I measured. I mean, I actually have a sediment map if I can share screen, but I don't see a way to do. Well, hold on. Do you guys mind if I try to share the screen so I can show you this?
No, I've got to let you, I will make an exception. We typically don't share screens, but I've
Okay.
got to I will make you a co-host.
Is there anything you sent in already, or?
No,
No,
I don't
okay,
I don't have a sediment map.
okay.
So I made you a co-host. You should, I'm not sure if I have to stop sharing or not, Mark. You might be, I think you should be able to go ahead and share your screen.
If it doesn't, if you can't do it now, then, we're just gonna accept the application tonight. You could send that information in and they
That's
could
fine.
show us the sentiments at the next meeting
That's fine, but
when we vote on it.
that's fine. So why don't I just not even go there? Just so I don't want to
Sure.
jam up the rest of your
Yeah.
meeting, trying to figure it all
Okay.
out. But essentially, there's places that have 1 foot of standing water right now. And at normal water elevation, you should be at more like 5.5 or 6 feet. So that's 1 point in the pond, right? But on average, there's 2.8 feet of depth being added back to this pond. And also keeping in mind that the deepest point we measured for standing water the day we were there was only 2 feet deep. So it's pretty substantial, the amount of water column you're getting back.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I have. I
Mr.
guess
Chair,
we'll-
could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm not sure, Martin, if this is for you or for, and I know it sounds like Will's not on the phone for this evening, but there had been, as part of all of this work, which is, it's different than just the dredging, but it does deal with the outlet, and there are some pictures, and I can bring them up from Martin's examination of the outlet here where the bridge crosses, and then it's a stone spillway into this channel prior to reaching the pipe inlet of 319 here. And as Martin mentioned, the garages flood. So in the garage elevations, you're at 321.9 here. And Bruce and I had suggested consideration of opening this up a little bit so that the overall discharge elevation at the top of stone is improved so that there's less risk of back water and flooding into the garage. So this is at 321.9, maybe 322 here. And the pipe inverts at 319. I don't know if there's an elevation of the stone. Martin, do you have any thoughts? So this is a view.
Yes, yeah, that's when I Bruce was trying to explain this concern to me on the phone a couple of months back. Then we had a conference call with Will, went back and forth, and so when I dropped off the wetland application a couple of weeks back, I went out there and took a much closer look under this bridge because we didn't have data there. And in fact, there are some large stones and boulders that tend to line the channel. They're not throughout the channel, but they have fallen in, and certainly around that outlet point right there, just forward of the bridge. That's shown in that photograph. There are some large boulders there, which will be moving out of the way. The sediment that goes right up to those will be removed. And now the channel itself looks pretty clear. I have a photo of the channel itself looking down, basically from the bridge going back down. And you can see that it's pretty clear with a few stones on the side. We'll move some of those stones out of the way. But the invert of the pipe, and then as the channel moves toward the pond, the bottom of that channel maybe comes up 4 or 5 inches, maybe 6 inches, but it is sort of dammed up at that outlet point there. There is a constriction. So we're going to be removing all that and removing all the sediment in the way and getting that elevation there as low as we possibly can. It'll be pretty darn close to the bottom of that pipe. And Will's gut is that, that 30-inch pipe should take all the flow that pond has to offer. And if it doesn't, there might be some kind of a constriction in the piping system itself further downstream. And we recommend, putting a camera in there and taking a look. But it really should accommodate all the flows through there. That's at a 30-inch pipe.
Okay,
But we will
perfect.
be
Thank
opening
you.
up that channel. Mm-hmm.
It does look like somebody made some kind of an attempt to dam it. Just the placement of some of these stones here. So-
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be moving those out of the way and opening that right up by hand.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
Okay,
small spillway is okay, but is definitely backing more than once. It's backed up into the garages, and there was yeah, just a few high-end vehicles that
Yeah.
went for an unintentional swim. So
Yeah.
and not the best water either.
Oh,
No.
no, there was yeah. So anyhow, okay, thank you. That answered the question I had.
My pleasure.
Okay, so we'll need to make a motion to accept the application and also to see if we would like a site visit.
So moved to accept the application, Mark.
Okay,
I'll second it, Rich.
okay, motion been moved and seconded to accept the application. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, the motion passes. I guess I'll poll the group and see if they think a site visit is necessary. I'm almost more interested in seeing this while it's going on. It seems like a very interesting process, but I don't know if we really need to see the pond, but I'll see. I would be open to it if people thought, it would be helpful. We'll start with Dave.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I want to see the pump.
Yeah. Okay. Neil Kelsey.
Yeah, I don't need a site visit.
Mark.
If there's a crowd going, I'll go, but otherwise I'm fine with what I'm seeing.
Okay. George Santos.
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. Rich Berlandy.
Not necessary. Thank you.
Okay, and Andre Simmons is out. And I don't think it's necessary either. I mean, we got some good photos here and it's just a lot of muck. And it's certainly, it's just interesting from, the dredging projects that I've seen and we're used to is seems like a much better situation for a smaller project to try this sucking the stuff out and trying to in addressing the need for more storage and cleaner storage. So we'll see you at the next meeting. Vote on the application.
Mr. Chair, do you want to determine significance at this meeting, or would you prefer to wait to the next meeting?
No,
Since there's no site walk, so either way is fine. I just wanted to ask the question.
no, thank you for reminding me. No, I think we could. I tend to think that this is more of almost a maintenance operation, and they don't appear to be making any significant changes, some significant improvements. But I think that this is not. It would require a public hearing, but I'll see how the other members feel. Neil Kelsey.
Yeah, I'm still working it through in my head.
Okay. Mark.
I'm not ready to commit at this time.
Okay, well then we'll leave it. We'll leave significance. I mean, we just thought so. We'll leave significance for the next meeting.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you for joining us this evening, Martin and Mark. Next meeting is May 1st. So, and Mark, if you could email us that sediment map, then we'll get that shared with the commission in advance of the meeting, and we'll have it available for presentation for the May
Problem.
1st meeting.
No problem. I'll have some materials for you guys to look at for the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Right. Thanks very much.
Next item on the agenda, Jane Hazard, 45 Shady Lane.
Yes, good evening, Ron Wolf, professional engineer representing the applicant and the owner, Jane Hazard. Just wait till you get the plan on the screen.
Yeah, just give me a sec. I didn't want to open everything since there's so many attachments tonight. I
Okay.
didn't want to open everything at once and risk having this whole thing crash on me. So, application, GIS location. That's probably it. Well, is that the best plan to use for right
Yeah.
now, Ron?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the property's at 45 Shady Lane, and Ms. Hazard has a existing septic system that is failing. We did soil testing with the Farmington Valley Health District and did the topography survey for the lot. And as you could see, there's a kind of a drainage swale that goes around the perimeter of the backyard. The backyard is all basically mowed lawn. Bruce did a site visit and he took some photos. I believe they're in your file. But the backyard is basically all mowed lawn, and there's a pretty large wetland area to the north on the other, just north of the property line. So the drainage ditch kind of separates the yard area from the wetland to the north. So we did the soil testing with the health district and submitted a plan, received approval for that. And as you can see, the lot is about 0.73 acres, and there's the well for Ms. Hazard's properties in the front yard, which prevents us putting the septic system in the front yard. And then the wells for the neighboring properties are also in the front yard. So we basically are forced to put a replacement septic system in the backyard. So we chose the kind of the highest and driest place, which was kind of where the system is positioned there. And we designed a septic system, and it's called a non-compliant repair just because of the difficult soil conditions that exist at the lot. It requires 25 feet of select fill to be placed down gradient of the leach fields, which is that gray shaded area that you see. Ms. Hazard has had a closing scheduled for actually today. That's been pushed off till April 6th. So she's trying to get this replacement septic system scheduled and get all her approvals so that she can continue on with the sale of the house. Bruce did write a review, and he requested that straw wattles be installed in addition to the silt fence, which we would agree with, and then also had questioned the tree, 36-inch maple tree that you can see on the plan, just upgrade of the leach fields, which is actually our benchmark. To the best of our knowledge, that tree is intended to remain. It's a little over 20 feet away from the leach fields. And I talked to one of the installers who actually did the soil testing with us, and he thought that tree could safely remain there. So that is in response to one of Bruce's questions. So we would request, if possible, that the commission review this activity as a permitted use. So Ms. Hazard can continue on with the system installation and the sale of the property. I can answer any questions you may have.
Where is the existing system?
The existing system is located more over where you see Test Pit 2 or TP2.
Okay.
We encountered it in that location, and the soil conditions were not as good there also, and it would have been closer to that little drainage swale in the back, so we kind of did test pit 2 and then moved around and kind of determined that that area was the most suitable.
And you have to bring in some pervious backfill or something, a better soil for
Yeah,
some
if
of this
you,
area?
Shannon, if you could scroll down a little bit, you could see a cross section of the leach field. So that's essentially the leach field with the sand that I was describing earlier. So that shaded gray area is the select fill. And that's the sand that's used to surround the leach field itself. And then we kind of create a apron down gradient of the leach field with that sand just to filter out anything that's in that
Okay.
water that's coming out of the septic tank.
Okay, and the septic tank and the distribution box are staying the same?
The septic tank was installed already. That had already been replaced.
Oh.
And we are installing the pump chamber and a force main to go between the pump chamber and the leach fields. Because we can't get it to flow by gravity, so we need that pump chamber.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I have. Dave Fox,
No questions.
Neil Kelsey,
Yeah, what's happening to the existing leach field?
Those would just be abandoned in place. They're not hollow structures. They're just the stone leaching trenches. So those would just be disconnected and then be allowed to remain in place.
Okay, so
Just
you're not disturbing that at all?
Pardon?
You're not disturbing that area at all?
No, it's just crushed stone and pipe. So we would just leave that there in place.
Okay. All right, that's all I had.
thank you. Mark Simpson,
No questions, thank you.
Rich Berlandy,
No questions, thanks.
George Santos.
Questions, thank you.
Okay. You've answered my questions. Well, seeing that this is, a maintenance requirement and for the house, I would think that it does fall within section 4A as a residential property use. But how does the rest of the commission feel? Go with Dave Fox?
Yeah, I would agree, and what as well, a better functioning septic system is going to improve the water quality of the wetlands. I have no problems.
Yeah. Neil Kelsey,
Yeah, I agree.
Mark Simpson.
I agree. Do we have a document that says the health agency approved this design? Do we have that?
Yes. Yes, this is a sign off from Farmington
Okay,
Valley.
I try to remember if I saw that. Okay. All right.
Sure.
So that's the only question I have. We can't go forward without that. All right. I think this is right to maintenance, rightful maintenance for the homeowner.
Okay. George Santos.
I agree with you as well.
All right. Rich Berlandy.
I would agree. Thank you.
Okay. So it's been pulled. I'll entertain a motion that this is meets the requirements of section 4A4, that it's a residential permitted use for maintenance of the property. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved by Dave.
All right, second,
Rich, I'll second it.
okay. All those in favor that this is meets the requirements of section 4A4 as a permitted use for maintenance. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, motion passes that it's a residential property rightful use.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right.
Number 5, cease and desist.
One of our favorite topics.
Yeah.
So latest update from Bruce, fines were issued on March 31st. I think he provided this update at the last meeting. And next week, we will just confirm with our finance department whether or not payment has been made on those fines. And then if not, then we proceed to the hearing officer to basically, it's a demand payment process. It's the process that's stepped out in the town ordinance. We've been working with the guidance of the town attorney. We'll continue to do so. And then we'll keep you updated as we progress. So, to date, to our knowledge, there's been no activity at the property this spring. My guess is the weather, has been prohibitive. So that, if nothing else, is helpful. So it's a status quo at the moment.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a couple things for planners report.
I do. So I'll just hit, touch base on a couple of things. There had been a question about Eversource right-of-way work in the Batterson Park Pond area. And we confirmed with Russ Arnold that Eversource is replacing some, but not all the poles along the transmission line between West Farms and Unionville. They've been coordinating with Public Works. Bruce actually looked at it earlier and walked a portion of it. They're using extensive matting to really diminish the timber mats. They're being used to diminish any disturbance or erosion, contribute to any erosion within that right-of-way area. So they said they used roadway utilizing timbers as a temporary measure. He had included photos in his link to the commission. Unfortunately, I don't have them here, but they were in the photos in the in his OneDrive that he shared with everybody. So that's the current status, and it's sporadic poles. It's not every pole along that entire transmission corridor.
Okay.
Okay. 504 Main Street, the property that backs up to the Paquabic River on the south end of town near the Plainville town line. We've been in touch with the property owner. He's confirmed that plants have been ordered and are ready to install once the weather is a little more consistent. We're getting close. I believe he's planning to install during the month of May, which would be fairly typical. 9 Apple Tree. Obviously there was the update about the fire. We have not had any further contact with the owner as of yet. Most of the plantings had been done. The plantings, any of the exterior of the property really wasn't damaged except for right adjacent to the rear of the home. So we will be in touch later. Obviously, the homeowner's got his hands full with some other things at the moment. So there's a handful of things left to do, but the wetland plantings and restoration, I believe the majority of that had taken place in the fall under the direction of George Logan.
So Shannon, I was talking to a fireman who was there fighting the blaze that morning, and he said that their work was hampered by the big hole in the backyard. He called it a swimming pool size hole. I thought that he was not allowed to put a swimming pool in there. So my question is, do we know if there is a hole there, and is this what he's doing if there is?
I don't know. Again, we haven't been to the property, so I can make note of that inquiry and go from there. I can't remember.
I thought we did, because I thought he got rid of the he got rid of the garage
Got
request.
rid of
but
the
he
garage, but I thought the
Still went
pool
through,
was
there was like
okay.
yeah, I thought it was like a pool house and pool combination thing
Yeah,
or something. I thought we did approve that, but I'm not positive.
there's a couple of iterations of this, so
Right.
I'll just check.
And that was before I joined. So I just wanted to make sure that whatever he was doing, because he does have a track record.
Yeah.
Understood.
Make sure that what he's doing is, you know, has been approved.
Understood.
Thank you.
I'm just making a note. Give me one sec here.
Sure.
There's a mind eraser that happens overnight. If I don't jot it down now, forget it. Um,
I have one of those too.
Trump, 1 Johnson Ave, Bruce met with contractors on April 11th. They're scheduled to perform the cleaning of the water quality basin the week of April 22nd. They'll meet with them again before they start that activity for review. A portion of the work for cleaning around the retention basin, has proceeded, and that was under a separate permit approved by the commission in January. The contractors cleaned the invasive species around that basin and repaired the outlet. And so there'll be more to come with that, and perhaps some follow-up photos once everything is taken care of, so that you folks have an opportunity to see what the final outcome is. Any questions on that one?
Nope.
Nope, hearing none. All right. So I slid in 5 Spring Lane on Monday. And 5 Spring Lane is the existing or former, it's Centennial apartments on that front Route 6 at the intersection of Route 6 and Spring Lane. And the apartments have converted to, sorry, the hotel, the inn has converted to apartments. I gotta get this going in the right direction. I'm gonna bring up the aerial too, because this might be a little easier. Got Swamp and Spring Lane right here. So it's actually 2 properties. It's 5, well, they're both called 5 Spring Lane, but so this is the property that we're speaking of. Scott Swamp and Spring Lane, and the Scott Swamp Brook runs through the center of the property. There's an existing access drive. So you can see there's a number of existing buildings. This was done, yeah, I think as an extended stay in, and again, now it's been converted to apartments. There's a pool and clubhouse here and extensive parking throughout. I'm going to come back and pop back over to the plan. So as part of their conversion, they're in need of constructing some parking spaces that had originally been deferred, approved as deferred parking spaces on the original plan. And there's a few of them, as I had mentioned, the Scott Swamp Brook is coming through the center of the property. This is the driveway access between the two portions. So the Scott Swamp Brook comes through the center. These handful of parking spaces are in the upland review. This dashed line here on the screen is the 150-foot upland review. So it's just inside, it's well within the area that's paved and disturbed. And similarly, there's building renovation that they're looking to do. The office, part of an area that's been used as an office, is going to be converted to 2 units. So this portion of the building is being converted to 2 additional units. And then there's a addition to an accessory building here, a small building addition. And then they have 2 fire pit grill areas that they're looking to install. So kind of a shared grill area that the residents can use. So one of them is located here. Again, at the very edge of the 150-foot review, upland review area. And then I've now come down to the southwest. I've crossed the bridge, and this is the other portion that's developed. This is the pool house. The pool house is having some work done it, as well as some of these parking spaces to create appropriate ADA accessible parking. This fire pit is also being installed in an existing grass area at a top of bank. So beyond just to the edge of the parking area, and in an existing flat grass area. This is the water course, and that's the 150-foot upland review area. And if I flip back to the aerial map, we're looking at an area in this area. So you've got this existing building, this parking, this drive aisle, catch basin in the there's a flared end section here. So a small barbecue area in this particular location. So again, there is minimal work in the upland review. The question to the commission is if this is significant enough that warrants a formal application with the commission, or if this is relatively de minimis. Installing the parking spaces, like I said, had been on a deferred on a previous plan, and then the two grill areas. So I'm looking for some feedback and thoughts.
So I'm trying to remember, what the deferred parking space, that means that they showed them on the plans, but accounted them for as like future use, or?
Correct. At the time, so the zoning regulations have a provision in the parking reg that up to 25%. So this is the plan from 2010 that has the deferred spaces on it that were approved at that time.
Okay.
And so the regulation says you can defer up to 25% of the parking spaces, but you must demonstrate on the plan where they would be located and how you would construct them, and they must be included in the impervious calculation at the time the plan's approved. The benefit to deferring them, and the thought is in some cases that there's shared use, or the applicant knows based on their business model, they don't actually need that additional up to 25%. In this case, I don't think it was quite 25% that was deferred. But they did show on that plan, this is the 2010 plan. So yes, they were
Okay.
approved. But the zoning regulations allow for a deferment, and now they're asking to construct them. You can see these are the spaces here. You can see this is the same upland review line. And these are the spaces here that they were looking to construct. This is the portion of the building that is being converted. And then there's just a small addition that's being made to this building. And then
Okay.
one of the, like I said, one of the grill areas is located here in the lawn.
And
it's
over more
all,
to the right, that's more deferred parking that they're putting in?
so this was deferred. Those spaces were deferred. At this time, they are not requesting,
Oh, okay.
let's see, previously, so these say previously deferred. So those were all previously deferred, but I don't believe the intent, I believe these where they've taken the gray off,
Yep.
is where previously deferred spaces to be constructed. So the call out is just distinctly different. So these are noted, they had been deferred, but they're now to be constructed.
Okay.
So it's these 5. This is just previously deferred, and they're remaining deferred at this particular time. I think with the expansion, the change of this from the office, like again, when it had been an inn/hotel, they needed a larger office area for taking in your customers like you would at a hotel, if you
Yeah.
will. As opposed to having a leasing office and just dealing with payments and a variety of whatever resident items that need to be taken care of. So they're actually converting, I'm not sure if it's, I think it's this building, they're putting in some office space here and converting to 2 additional residential units. Thus, I believe the drive for the additional parking.
Okay. And, what was I gonna say? Okay, so then here, there's more previously deferred spots that are still
Correct.
staying as deferred spots.
Those are just staying as deferred, but they're well out, all this,
Yeah.
so even this building and the pool area are outside the 150 foot. This is outside the 150 foot.
All right,
It's just the small grill area on the lawn, this small grill area, and then
what are the
these.
little dots? Are little dots? like
They're
hidden?
erosion control, they're indicating, so at
Okay.
the time that they're going to, put this work in, they're just being mindful that silt socks were located in grass, stake silt socks in place. So it's just an intent to have some erosion control in while there is
Okay.
some minor earth disturbance.
Yeah. All right, well, I think just these fire pit areas, I mean, I don't see any walls or, there any changes in the elevation. It just looks like there would be bringing in some fire pits and chairs or
I think some
picnic tables
correct.
and
Yeah, a couple
patio
Adirondack chairs,
blocks.
correct.
Yeah. What is the what is that a drain next to that?
Yeah, and they have inlet protection called out next to that.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I don't know, we could pull the
Yeah, here's
commission,
the,
but I see, especially since these were previously deferred in there, they put some thought into it in regards to they're not just switching all their previously deferred lots, the spots over, you're identified where the need is and the rest of the deferred spots will stay, so and since they were approved and you say
it's
the
2010.
drainage has to be accounted for in the original approval for those?
Correct, yes, sir. So the impervious coverage, so everything would have been done assuming that those parking spaces were constructed. The only benefit to the applicant is the savings of the cost of the actual construction at the time that they built this originally. But the drainage and impervious coverage calculations would have included those areas.
Okay. And you're just looking for thoughts on how what we
So
think.
whether if you're if there's no concern and we're looking at this as de minimis and a permit isn't needed, then this will proceed to TPZ next on Monday night
Yeah.
on April 22nd. And if there is concern and feels that it warrants a permit, then an official permit will come before you, then it would be May 1st.
Construction is off to,
Sorry, Mr. Chair, you're in and out a bit.
all right, how much, the building that was their office that they're converting to living space, how much of a change is that?
So this is the footprint is showing here in gray. Well,
Well,
I
it
don't
says,
think there's really much, if any, change to the permit, or the
Alright.
footprint, excuse me, I believe. It's
No,
just an interior change, that's an interior change.
well,
And then-
it's like they're knocking off some of the building, but
But there is a physical expansion to this accessory building here, so that is being physically expanded.
Yeah. Well, I think they're removing some of that building.
Of this one?
No, the other one, because it says existing building with the crosshatched area. The other the main building, the larger building, I should say. Doesn't that say,
So this is main building.
yeah, and I think it came down all the way.
Well, no, so this building is so this is all remaining. This is
Oh.
remaining, and then, but I think that this is indicating that this is the portion of the building, this is the portion of the building that had been office. This is
Alright.
the portion of the building that's being renovated
Okay,
too. So
alright,
this existing portion is remaining. And now
okay,
this is signifying the portion to be renovated to create, convert from office to apartments.
but no footprint change
Correct, based on what I'm
for
looking
that
at
building.
here. There's still this same bump out, there's this
Yeah,
jog.
yeah,
It's,
okay.
yeah,
And the other one is adjacent to the building, but they're increasing the building a little bit on
they're
the
gonna,
north side.
correct. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right. It looks like a pretty, in regards to how much effect it will have on the waterway, it looks pretty minimal to me. The fact that, the drainage was accounted for on the previous approval. I don't know. I would lean against it requiring an application. But let's see, anybody else have any comments from the board? They would think they should have an application on this? Going once?
Well, it's Mark here. I thought you might pull the board. I
Oh.
don't know about having an application, but I was trying to figure out those fire pits. I see it's nice and everything else. Would it be something just beneficial to have some type of trash receptacles there? I don't know.
Absolutely.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, I just see, you're going to use that. It could be a lot of trash, and it could,
Yeah.
obviously, with wind. We haven't had any wind lately, have we? So, I mean, what's the chances of this happening? I mean, zero, right? But just in case we do get wind, it might be beneficial to have some type of trash bin there.
So we can rely on staff to make that suggestion?
Of course, absolutely.
Okay. That's very good. All right, you're right. I should poll the group. Rich Berlandy, you think they need an application?
No, it looks like the grill area is gas grills and a gas fire pit. If it were charcoal, then I might have a little bit more concern because people like to dump ashes and stuff out. But
Yeah.
No, I think this is fine.
Okay, Dave Fox,
I don't have any problems with it either.
all right. Neil Kelsey,
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Mark Simpson, you said yes.
I said, no application.
Yeah, no application and a good suggestion for a garbage collection. And George Santos.
I agree, no application, and I also agree with the rubbish and somewhere
Okay.
there.
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion on both of them. Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Okay,
Oh, the next one is for Conservation Commission, huh?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, so we'll finish out the wetlands. Gotta move some stuff around and I can get the agenda and stuff back up for you.
Okay, so the last thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of April 3rd. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move, Mark.
Okay,
Second, Rick.
moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, motion passes. And so we will adjourn inland wetlands at 8:55.
All right, and
And we'll call the conservation agenda. Call the Conservation Commission meeting to order at 8:56.
Okay. If you're agreeable, I'll jump right into planners report.
Planners, does anybody have any new business? No. Planners report, please.
Yes, sir. So the town of Farmington has been working with the property owner of Glen Hollow, the subdivision, the 8 lots at the end of Glen Hollow Drive. These have been, they were approved subdivision back in 2005. They were reapproved back in, I'm going to say 2020, roughly. Some of the commission members may recall doing a site walk during COVID back here at the time when this was reapproved. Wilson Development currently owns these parcels. It is part of the Bridgehampton subdivision development. And it just has not been, this portion has not been developed yet. So the town has worked with Mr. Wilson and has come to an agreement regarding the purchase of this. There was of these lots and the road extension. And it had a public hearing with town council at the last meeting on April 1st. And with that, it was referred out to the Town Plan and Zoning Commission under an 8-24 referral. So basically, I'm asking, the Conservation Commission is looking at this advisory to Town Plan and Zoning Commission. The Conservation Commission independently does not have a direct 8-24 referral obligation or statute. So I'm going to roll through the presentation that went through at Town Council. And I also have our GIS up and can scroll in and out as needed to answer additional questions. So again, these are the lots. There's 8 lots at the end at Glen Hollow's, an existing roadway. The proposal had been an extension of Glen Hollow with 4 lots to the east and west, approximately 6.5 acres. They are currently vacant lots. They are R40 zone. It was an R40 cluster subdivision. There is notable resource value to this in that it links to additional open space. It preserves upland habitat to the Unionville Brook and an unnamed tributary to the brook. And you can see on the screen the town appraised values of the property. The current price is $600,000 for the property. So less than both appraised values. Here's a larger zoomed out view. Here's the 8 lots still outlined in red, that the 6.5 acres that are up for consideration for purchase. Here's Bridgehampton to the north, at the very north or top edge. In this larger area, the 9292 number, lot number, is the town open space that came to the town of Farmington as part of the Bridgehampton development, and it is roughly 52.5 acres. This sliver here, also outlined in the blue with the, I think it says 8076. That is not from Wilson Development. That was from the development of Glen Hollow and I think that says Oldfield. This is an additional 8.3 acres. So when we put everything together, we would be well over, there's an existing 60 acres that the 6.5 would be added to. So as far as linkage, the property is, as I noted, contiguous to approximately 60 acres of existing town-owned open space. The purchase of the land would provide additional buffer to the water course. I'm going to pop back up to the aerial real quick. This running north-south is the main trunk of the Unionville Brook, and it runs under Bridgehampton. There's a bridge, there's 2 bridges on Bridgehampton, but there's the culvert bridge or the span arch under Bridgehampton that Unionville Brook runs under. The unnamed tributary runs here at the toe of slope of this subdivision, the 8 lots unquestioned. And it runs in an east-west direction, and it comes in and it ties into the Unionville Brook in the vicinity of here. It meanders a little bit. And that's also why this came to the commission. These lots, the three northernmost lots are within the 150-foot upland review. And then this lot on the corner on the southeast corner is in the 150-foot upland review of the Unionville Brook. It also assists with the preservation of wildlife. The property, this property, along with the town-owned open space, supports a rich mix of botanical and wildlife habitat. I do have, I don't think I shared it, but I have reviewed the original wetland report, the inventory and evaluation that was done in 2005 when the property and the subdivision was originally approved. And this area is discussed extensively, and I can look it up if anyone's interested, but there's a number of species. We're talking 30 to 40 different bird, animal, mammal species, amphibian and reptile. So this is what the town council is looking to do, is purchase the 8 lots and the area, the 6.5 acres for $600,000. Again, they set the public hearing at their March meeting. They held the public hearing on April 1st. It's been referred out to TPZ. TPZ, it's on their agenda for next Monday evening on the 22nd. And then that referral go back to town council. They will hear it at their May 14th meeting. And at that point, it would be town council's choice then whether or not they proceed with a vote that evening to determine whether or not to acquire and proceed with the acquisition of the property and direct the town manager to execute purchase and sale agreements. So
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question. These lots were part of the Bridgehampton Crossing development, but
yes,
they're
sir.
at the end of the Glen, because the Glen Hollow was not part of the Bridgehampton, right?
It was all part, so it was all part of one tract of, or multiple tracts of land that were assembled. Even Long Ridge Court is actually part of the Bridgehampton subdivision. So these, the Glen Hollow, Long Ridge Court, and then Bridgehampton in its entirety and all its spurs were all developed at the same time.
Okay.
These pockets, Long Ridge Court and Glen Hollow, I believe, were done. It's not immediately contiguous because of this large wetland system with the Unionville Brook coming through and the tributary coming through. But they were able to capitalize on the upland area in both these locations. And you'll recall, again, for those that were able, that were on the commission at the time and did the walk, this area, there's a dip in the road, but then it comes up, and we walked quite a bit uphill. These lots here, there's a knoll right in this area, and then quite a steep drop off. So these 3 lots on the northern edge, the topography dropped off rather steeply down towards that tributary, and the water service to service these lots actually comes from Gateshead. There's an easement on lot 5 or 7, and it comes through. There is an actually there's an excavation through the unnamed tributary to provide water service up to these lots. That's how water was coming in to service the 8 lots. So it would eliminate obviously that too with the purchase of these lots. So again, it's really looking for a consensus, and if you're for a positive endorsement to TPZ, and then that would be shared with TPZ on Monday evening as the same exact information is being shared with them Monday evening, looking for them to in turn provide a positive endorsement to the town council.
Okay, well, I'll start, I guess. I think that it's would be a great asset. I think it would by tying that land together and by protecting the Unionville Brook waterway and then also the tributary that comes up, at the end of that lot and behind the Gates headways, adding additional protection to that little tributary to Unionville Brook would be a great thing, and I would be supportive of it, but why don't we all poll the committee and see how they feel? Rich Berlandi?
Yeah, I think I was on that sidewalk and I remember those lots had some pretty, like Shannon said, some pretty
Yeah, I remember.
severe, topography to deal with, and
I also remember finding, like, didn't we find a car out in the middle, like nowhere, an old
Yep.
car? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few interesting things, and we've been combating ATV and motocross use there.
Yeah.
We've had PD out, we've had trail cameras out, we've done a number of things out there. So yeah. Yeah, and it's typical, right? It's unfortunately, right, when there's an open area, wooded area, then you do get some of these
Yeah.
things. But if we can minimize the development around it, then or increase
Yeah.
the buffer, it'll help.
I would support this 100%.
Dave Fox?
Yeah, I would definitely support it as well. Good habitat, protect the water quality. It seems it's a good price too.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Neil Kelsey?
Yeah, I agree. I support it. I just have one question. How does the town go about funding this?
Land acquisition
there-
budget, I
I
guess.
should
There
probably
is-
know that, but
So there is a land acquisition budget, and so that is, I think it has been funded historically through capital. The capital end of the budget, and so this will not deplete. I do know this will not deplete the budget, but it is capital money, and there is a budget in place for land acquisitions. And my understanding is we currently hold sufficient funds to engage in this
okay.
purchase.
Okay, that's helpful, especially, thank you for that, especially with the referendum coming up next week.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, no, this will not be on a referendum. That is not my understanding.
There have been referendum questions for during a bonding to provide money to the Land Acquisition Commission in the past. I'm pretty sure I remember.
Correct, I think
And
you're
that's
right.
how, along with general budget money, that's how the land acquisition gets funded, from bonding, from approval from referendums.
And I would figure in the future, the town, if they do purchase it, they will go to the state of Connecticut and ask, apply for funding to supplement the cost of purchasing this. Haven't they done that in the past? I don't know
We
if
have done that
states-
in the past with a number of the properties. So a number of the properties that we held is open space that the town has purchased, that haven't come to us as part of a development with a cluster development like the 9292 land did, as it's shown on the screen. But that comes then with a restriction. Where it
Yeah.
comes with restrictions on the land, as we found when we were trying to look for other locations for the high school, that it limited our ability. So that certainly, it is an option. I don't know if they plan to avail themselves and pursue that for this particular piece.
Yeah, I didn't know if the other
But it
piece
would be, typically
that
it
way.
happens after we would, as I've looked into some of them and tried to follow a chain of title and restriction, typically we come into ownership of the piece and then afterwards submit paperwork to DEP for reimbursement for a portion of the price, and then that comes with an added deed restriction that's placed on the property on top of the town's open space ordinance items that are already in place.
Okay, where did I leave off?
We
I left
finished,
on
Neil.
Mark's
We got the last affirmative from
Right.
Neil, so, yeah.
George Santos?
Mark, you're a yes, or sorry?
Oh, yeah, well, Mark.
Oh, yes, I'm a yes.
Okay,
You know, it's looks like a great addition to a very nice piece of open space.
Okay, and George Santos?
Agree with Mark.
Okay, you agree with everybody. So that's a unanimous support for this purchase from the Conservation Commission.
I appreciate it. Thank you. The only other thing I have is just a reminder that this weekend's Household Hazardous Waste and Cleanup Day. And so if you're so inclined from a conservation effort, there are opportunities abound on Saturday on the 20th. And I think we've got Earth Day I think Earth Day is technically Monday, but it's Earth Day weekend anyhow. So that would be the only other thing I have to share from a conservation type standpoint with everybody.
Okay.
And we have the hazard pickup. Don't we have that coming?
Correct. Yep, that's this weekend too. So I'm sorry,
Yeah.
did I not say both? I meant to say both if I didn't. So household hazardous waste here at the town hall and high school complex, along with shredding. And then the cleanup day events, the 4 locations at town, Tungus Fire, Tungus Mead, Farmington Fire Department, and IAR. So yes, both. It's a busy Saturday morning for the town of Farmington.
I'll just add that I'm gonna attend the Farmington Land Trust annual meeting because I got a call that I guess the chair is a member of the Farmington Land Trust, the Inland Wetlands Commission,
Yes, the de facto member,
de
correct.
facto member. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna attend the annual meeting of the Farmington Land Trust tomorrow.
Oh, great. Okay. And Sandy reminded me bulk pickup is next week too. So
Okay. Is there anything else?
no, sir.
From the commission, okay. That just leaves us to approve the minutes of April 3rd. I have a motion. to
So
Approve the
moved, Mark.
minutes. Okay, motion made by Mark and a second. Second,
Anybody?
That's Rich, I'll second.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, motion made and second to approve the minutes of April 3rd. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. So thank you, everybody, for your time, and we will adjourn at 9:14.